Hello, everybody. It is your girl, Tamala Baldwin, and you are tuning in for another segment of the Becoming Love Project radio show or podcast, whatever fits your fancy. And today we are speaking about judgment. Sometimes we're on the spiritual path, and just sometimes as we're living our life, we can be so judgmental with ourselves, with others, and our experiences. And today I want to talk about how that may impede in getting us to where we really want to go. Sometimes we can self-sabotage our progress without even really realizing it. And I think it's a conversation that we should all explore. And I have a beautiful soul joining me today to help facilitate this conversation. And her name is Becky Hernandez. She goes by the Misfit Yogi, and all the misfits out there, can I get a hello? Like, we are just like amazing. So Becky, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be talking with you about this subject in particular and just feeling great about it.
So I'm curious, how did you come up with the word misfit yogi?
Yeah, I had a feeling that was coming. So, it came about in yoga training initially because we were supposed to name our group. And we were this mix of people. But of course, it's not very yogi to be a misfit. So the teacher wasn't thrilled about the name.
Really?
Yeah, some have a negative affiliation with it. But I didn't see it the same way. What I saw it as is not the straight line. Doesn't go maybe the exact way everybody else does. And that was definitely my path. I just at that time, and now I do it on and off, but I wasn't vegan. I smoked, like I was a recovering alcoholic, like all these things that just did not seem to go with what people normally think of yoga or things like that.
And isn't that almost divine how that is tying into our subject today, about how you're supposed to be or fit any kind of mold, especially when it comes to being spiritual. Spiritual to me is all about, experiencing the ultimate freedom through conscious expansion, opening our heart and communing with our higher self. But yet and still we put these little labels and create these little boxes as to what that means. And I just love that you have the misfit yogi, where you're just kind of breaking down those self-made or man-made boxes,
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. I mean, that's part of why I think I ended up on this path was I wanted freedom. I mean, that was, I said that from the beginning, that was my prayer, freedom, freedom, freedom. But I didn't really know what that meant. And spirituality and those things really felt like freedom to me, but we're human. So,
so what did you want to be free from? Like, what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom of the bondage of self. That's how I was in an office job I hated. I wasn't basing anything on what I wanted to do. I was basing it all on what I thought I was supposed to do, what society told me I was supposed to do, what's the straight and narrow type thing. And it just never ever fit for me. But I just always tried to squeeze in that box, like you said. So I wanted to be able to expand beyond the box, which, sometimes is the physical body. We all have it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to expand beyond it. And I knew there was a way to do that. I knew it intuitively, like deep, but I could not see it, in front of me, how to get there at first. And freedom. Go ahead.
Before you tell us how you got there, I want to know about, so many people feel the way you felt when you worked in your corporate job. You felt stifled and maybe like the air was being sucked out of you. But a lot of people, millions of people, choose to, stay on that, path because it's safe and it's stable and it's what they know. how did you navigate that? How did you break free? And even once you broke free from corporate America, I'm sure you had growing pains as well. So how did you
Yeah,
manage all of that?
absolutely. Well, I think for a little while, the intention was so clear that I wanted to be out of it. And every time I moved towards it, I couldn't do it. So
Mm.
that's when I trust that I will be guided at the right time, right place, and so on. So I was going back and forth with it for a little bit, and meanwhile discovering more and more about myself and classes and things like that, almost knowing it was going to happen. I just didn't know when. And then one day, my boss said something like, "What do you want to do here in 5 years?" Like one of those questions.
Yeah.
And I,
Stupid questions.
right? I know. I'm like, I kept thinking, you want me to lie, right? You don't want me to tell you the truth because who wants to be here type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, like,
But most people just lie, and I couldn't do it. I said, I don't want to be here.
oh my
I
goodness.
can't be here anymore.
You are such a boss. And what did your boss say? Was he like, what happened?
Well, of course, I thought he was going to be upset, but he was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine. Maybe you can do stuff from home," and still kind of like tethering me
Oh,
a bit.
wow.
I
Nice.
know, and it was huge for me to say, "I don't want to do this," with nothing planned. I mean, I was Reiki master, all that stuff, but nothing was planned. I wasn't doing my business, and I just trusted that it was going to be okay. I always say this: on paper, it was not okay. Everything on paper was the death of me. But I did it anyway. And he even, like I said, was trying to, we were going back and forth, and I said, no, I can't do it. And the next day or that week, I had 2 people contacting me saying, "Are you a healer yet?" And I had posted anything, nothing. So I knew it was divine. I knew I was being protected, and I just trusted.
I love it. So I didn't really tell all of you amazing people what Becky does. So why don't you tell us what you actually do, Misfit Yogi?
Thanks. I do a lot of things, but primarily I'm an intuitive healer.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
So what it means is, and this is part of the beauty of it that's different than some of the other jobs I've had, is that I channel life force energy, and I channel divine energy, angelic energy, things like that, things that feel, for lack of a better word, higher than me, and purer, right? Because they don't have a body and things like that. So I do Reiki and other energy healings, but I also intuitively do the healing, and then I also pick up stuff on people's lives or on their chakras, and I read energy. So
read mine. Don't read mine.
I know, I don't do it that way.
Okay.
I'm very protective. I'm not invasive. I know.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of it was to bring people back to themselves, not to have to rely on me or whatever for the rest of their life to guide them. Everybody needs help, sometimes, and just guidance is how I see it. So I'm a Reiki master. I'm an intuitive, and I work with past lives. I do all types of things, anything I can do to help somebody heal, or at least open up to the potential of healing.
In your experience as an intuitive healer, how does our beliefs about ourselves play an impact in moving past trauma or removing any kind of blockages? Because even me, like, I have this Becoming Love project. People are like, "Oh, Tamala, like the love person." And it's like, but okay, yeah, I'm all about opening my heart and becoming more, aware of my higher self. But there's fear, like there's judgment. I criticize myself constantly. And so in your role, how has that impeded someone's progress? Is it common?
Yes, it's very common. And even you saying the beliefs about yourself. So a belief is a judgment. Okay.
A belief is a judgment, y'all. I'm writing that down.
Because non-judgment or non-attachment is not attached or detached. It's non, right? So not judging the bad, obviously, not judging the good, not judging, just being in the flow. So a lot of times our beliefs, even good ones, are attaching us to something, and it makes it hard to see past that. So it limits our view. So if even if I say I'm the best thing in the world, whatever, even if that's more positive than saying I'm the crappiest thing in the world, it's still an attachment to something. So it makes something superior or inferior, and it blocks the flow.
Speaking of attachment, I was doing some reading, and it said that attachment and lack of acceptance for what is the root of, or a big part of, our suffering. And I think about that. I think about, like when I'm miserable and like throwing a freaking temper tantrum. What is the root of it? And it's because I'm attached and I can't accept what currently exists. So as an intuitive healer, how would someone like me, or just anybody, learn to become more at peace with what is? Like, is there any kind of like magic spell? I don't know.
Well, just being in a human body kind of blocks a lot of the, magic spell out of work to get to it, right?
Yeah.
So how I see it as, because like I said, I don't even necessarily like the word work. What I see it as a practice. Our English language even is just so filled with stuff that automatically puts a judgment on it, right? But practice is something that you can do, not do, go in and out of. So what I'll tell people is to practice non-judgment. So if you're taking a walk around your neighborhood and you say, oh, what a pretty tree, that's a judgment. That's an attachment. And so just having the intention that you want to practice that, it'll come up. You'll see that maybe you thought you had 5 judgmental thoughts per day, but really you have like 150, you know what I mean? Because you put the intention out and then you start to see it. So instead of attaching to it, practice observing it, being aware of it, right? So it does, and meditation is a huge way to get that rolling, because it's the same thing. Most people say, I can't meditate because I can't get my mind to stop. Well, it's, first of all, we're not trying to get your mind to stop. I mean, I know we're human beings. So it's practicing quieting the mind, not getting rid of it, not expecting no thoughts ever, being the observer, right? So a thought comes in meditation and you just watch it pass by and you're practicing that. And then some days will be better than others, right?
That's such a great tip when it comes to meditation, because when I first started learning how to meditate, like back in undergrad, and I was getting on my books before it was like kind of cool to be exploring that, right. All the books would say, to quiet your mind. And I would, try, but I would have thoughts, and even then that would become a judgment. Like, I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing it right. So I love that you said to observe and to be more mindful or aware of even in that exercise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's part of the misfit thing too. I'm not really big on.
I love that. I just freaking love it.
Have tos. And I mean, I'm a regular person, and a lot of my clients, I think, gravitate to me because I'm not judging them. I have no desire, I know how that feels if I go somewhere for help or whatever and somebody's judging me. I don't know how to explain it. I just don't have it in me. Maybe my experience through life even, contributed to that. So and it was hard for me too. Mm-hmm. So if I told myself, you have to do this right, I was already screwed. I mean, somehow or another, I would get in, that's the box. Yeah. So I just had to keep practicing non-judgment. So I'd have a thought about myself, and instead of saying you should or shouldn't have that thought, I would just watch it. And sometimes I would actually allow it, which is one of the things that I tell people. So instead of saying get rid of the ego, as an example, Sometimes it is about, telling the ego to shut the heck up. And sometimes it's about letting it talk, because you've just been blocking it either way. So I'll tell people sometimes sit for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and let it go. Let it flow. Tell the ego to tell you whatever it wants, and it'll go. Like, you're this, and it's so ridiculous.
I know.
That you realize, oh, I can't be all of those things,
Yeah.
The mind and ego is trying to tell me. And so that allows for some opening too.
Oh, so about that, now a lot of people, it took me a long time to even try to gain a little bit of control over my ego and my thoughts. And so as someone that may be beginning on their spiritual path and they're just learning how to connect or with their higher self and to meditate and just being open to more, how can they even begin to not internalize what they hear, their belief systems, because you mentioned, let your ego go on a rampage, but sometimes you can't stop it. Even when you're not meditating, you just can't stop it. You are constantly berating yourself. You're constantly unkind to yourself. How would you, I guess, advise someone to be more gentle or to train their ego, I guess?
Right. I know it's tricky.
Yeah.
Because see, that's what gets tricky too. So let's say you've practiced and you've trained and you've done that. So let's start there. There's going to come a time where everything's falling apart, right? Just let's say your bills, your relationship, everything. And then now it's on fire again. So that's part of why I don't really like the term so much of shutting down, because I don't think that we can fully. It's about the way we see it when it happens. So part of that exercise of the 2 minutes, and it can be timed where you just let the ego go, is to be more familiar with it so that you can be aware of it, how ridiculous it can be when it's speaking to you.
Yeah.
So it's you're walking down the street and you're beating yourself up about something, and you're just bringing awareness to it. You're not trying to stop it, and you're not trying to feed it, right? You're just saying, okay, what's that telling me? Oh, it's saying this. Okay. And it's sort of hard to explain, but it is a different energy. It's a different feeling when you're observing it. So you're not attaching either way. And I think that sometimes, I really think that's the easiest way, because I've been in the situation where I've quieted the ego, almost gone, just with a lot of positive affirmations and things like that, which I'm still into, but I would do that and it would bring me to a certain level, and inevitably it wasn't working anymore.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So to me, the human experience is a lot about practice, continuous practice. We have this idea that there's a destination. We just do. That's just how we function, right?
Yeah.
That's judgment also. That's not accepting what is in the moment as it's supposed to be. No, and that's just what opens the flow to everything, being in the moment. So as the observer, you have this judgment about your job or yourself or whatever it is. It's what's in this moment? Where am I in this moment? My feet are standing here. That type of thing. Where are my feet? That's where are my feet? And then move on. And so that's kind of the practice. I don't know if that makes sense. It makes
sense. No, it makes sense. It totally makes sense. Now, I want to know a little bit more about you. Did you have to heal yourself, or were you always conscious mystic yogi?
I was very sensitive, and I do think that I got at least a part of the issues with judgment kind of early on because of my sensitivity, you know what I mean? And I was lucky that my mom wasn't really like that. She went through a lot of stuff. So she was very easygoing and all that. But of course, school and so on, nobody was like that. So I was having physical problems because I was not aligned with.
What do you mean by that? What kind of physical problems?
I was having really bad back spasms in the mid part of my back. And it got to a point, and I did yoga training because I noticed that was helping release stuff. And that's a good example of practice too, because you bring your gaze back. So you have all these things going on in the mind and you practice gazing. So it's just like pulling yourself out of it a little bit. So I was doing these things and it was helping, but it wasn't getting rid of it. So I got a really bad back spasm. I was in bed basically for 6 weeks. And I tried everything and I just didn't know what to do.
Let me interrupt you really quickly.
Yeah.
What made you think that it was a spiritual as opposed to, just aging pains? Because right now, like my back, my knees hurt,
Right.
like, I'm not 21 anymore.
Well, yeah. I mean, this first was happening. I was 20 something when I was just driving from work and I turn my head and I'm in a full spasm.
Oh,
right?
gosh.
I'm stressed out. I'm not in my right space. I'm avoiding my true self, really. So it just kept happening. So I tried medical stuff. I got MRIs. They gave me all these, diagnosis, and that just didn't fit with me. I could tell, you have lupus, you have RA, yeah, you have MS by the last time. And that
But did you have those things or no?
No. I mean, do I or not? I mean, I think most in the medical community, maybe I don't feel that way. And I believe that most of inflammation is an energetic issue. It's a spiritual disease because nobody can really even nail it down. Like, why? So that's how I see it today. Sometimes if I feel a little uneasy, I'm inflamed. And so I check in with it. What's going on in my life? How do I feel about stuff? So I did yoga training and that helped, but it wasn't really, the full thing. And that 6-week thing happened. I got woken up in my bed by spirit, a friend of mine that had passed away.
Wait. You got to paint us a picture now.
Yeah, I know.
Of what that was like. Okay.
Well, kind of like, we were talking about a little bit earlier, you're meditating, not meditating, and we're kind of avoiding it or whatever it is. So I was doing mediumship stuff too at the time, but I was so consumed by this back spasm thing that I just almost cut off my spirituality. That's how it felt, right? Because I was just fed up. And so I was getting like shooken in my bed, and it kind of feels like a little earthquake, and you wake up. Oh my gosh! And I'm like, no. Finally, I can't sleep, shaking me, this very intense feeling. And I got
wait. I'm sorry. Yeah. That is it's a little bit scary, but also so funny. They're like,
I know.
Becky, wake your ass up. And you're like, oh. Yeah.
No. And I'm like, no, the first couple days or whatever, I was like, no, I don't want help. That's in essence what that means, right? I don't want help. And lots of people think they do and they don't. Yeah, it's just how our makeup is, I think. So I'm like, no, I don't want help, basically. And then it was big. But by that point I had medium experiences, so it didn't really scare me. It more annoyed me.
You're like, what did I say?
Yeah. So I got up, and this kind of ties in with what you were saying earlier, because I do think it's a mix of stuff when we pull stuff to us. So I get up and I start talking to him, and he's kind of yelling at me, and he said,
he was yelling? Show me.
Yes. Like,
demonstrate.
It's really fast the way I hear it.
Okay.
And if it was a regular person yelling at me, it might intimidate me. But this, I was in like a zone just listening to him because I could tell it was important. So it felt. So he's like, if you don't do something now, it's going to consume you. It's consuming you. It's energy. It's fear. You're pulling it to you, and you're just perpetuating it. And you're pulling it. If you keep doing that, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And it was like, and I'm like, is it this person or that person? Like issues I was going with. He's like, it's partially them, but the more fear you're in, the more fear you pull to you. And fear is an energy. It really is. It's an emotion, right? Nobody can touch fear, but everybody knows what it is. So I have a back spasm. I've been having them. So I'm judging it, and I'm thinking it's going to take my life away. And what am I going to do for the rest of my life? That whole futuristic thing. He said, if you don't do something now, you're not going to recover.
Wow.
And the doctors saying MS, all that stuff was starting to freak me out, even though it didn't feel right to me. So he said,
of course, you always get a little scared when they call you and like say, you have to come in, you know, talk about your results. It is nerve-wracking, you know?
Yeah. And they just go by one way. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
It's true or not, this is how they do it. And even the doctor that said I had MS said it so flippantly. And I'm like, well, where can you show me where it proves that? Well, there's no proof. It's this, that, whatever, which come to find out a lot of those things are energy connected, like my sensitivity, you know, fatigue or headaches or, you know, even the spasms, stuff like that. So he said, you have to say, what?
This is your spirit, the spirit.
Yeah,
the
this is my spirit friend.
Okay.
He said, basically start here. Say you are healed instead of you are sick, right? So I'm constantly every morning waking up. I'm sick. It's over for me. He said, say you are healed and send yourself green light.
Green light, not white light?
It was green light. And I came to find out later when I got more involved in stuff that it's the heart chakra color and it's also the color of healing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking about like, you have more?
No, well, I woke up the next day, no back spasms, didn't have them again.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Did you have to continually affirm that you're healed or just went away?
I actually got involved in energy work after that because it was so profound that I woke up the next day completely fine. After
it was done.
It was done. I couldn't believe it.
Okay, so two things. Yeah. There's twofold. You know, you mentioned, you know, the importance of speaking what you want into existence. And then the other thing is also having the conviction that it will come to pass. A lot of us may say, you know, I am healed, I am loved, but you don't see the results because of that second piece. So when you were speaking about the healing and the green life, what do you think made it happen overnight? Was it your belief? What was it?
That's such a good question. Because a lot of times people will think that I believed it because I said it.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I was more like, I have no other options. What it felt to me was like a surrender. I have my mind, and what I believed would help me was not working. I had no, I was beaten.
Yeah.
But in the best possible way, right? So when we run out of options, we surrender, and then the universe can come in and provide.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I'm going to cry. Because, and that's usually how it works. Usually when we're going through our shit and we're like so like messed up and we want to cry and give up and we're cursing and just miserable. Usually when we say enough and we just let go, that's pretty much where the magic, or I like the word magic, we're like,
yes, no,
awesome
that
stuff
is
happens,
the magic.
you know?
Yes. And I mean, that's what I'll say to people too when they say, I actually don't really, it's tricky because I don't most of the time like the idea of limiting anything because that's a judgment, right? So if somebody says they want XYZ, I say ask for love. Ask for the essence of what you want. If you can ask for the essence of what you want, then you leave it open for the universe to provide the exact right thing for you. So if you say, I want love, I want him to look like this, or, you know, whatever it is, it's not that you can't do that, but and you may get that, but how do you know that that's right for you? Do you know what I'm saying? So even with freedom, that was my initial prayer. I didn't say I want my freedom to look like this. I really didn't know. I just knew I wanted freedom.
Yeah.
I assumed that probably meant, you know, the physical stuff, but what it meant was the freedom within. So I really feel the best way to leave it in the flow and is open, but put the intention out there, is to put out the intention of the essence of what you want.
Okay, well, let's make it practical for people, you know, because that's something that you don't hear every day, you know, about asking for the essence. So what's the essence of I want $100,000? Like I want to make.
See, that even limits. What if it could be $1 million?
It could be, yeah.
Yeah. Well, think about why you want the $100,000. So, and a lot of times this comes, the actual pureness of it can come in a surrender, or that's been my experience with myself and with my clients, right? So, you know, I'm upset or whatever it is. And then that surrender comes and I go like, I want this person to love me. I want that person to respond this way. None of that's happening. Everything's getting old. What do I really want? So that's what I ask. What do I really want? I just want love. And there's a surrender in that. And then it just opens it up. So if you want $100,000, $1 million, why do you want it? Do you want it to look good? Do you want it because you think it'll give you freedom? Do you, you know, so let's say, for example, it's the freedom. You believe money gives you freedom, then ask for the essence of freedom. You know,
I love that. But the essence of like stability and security, are those like pure? You know, because a lot of people base their lives on those things. They want stability. That's why they want a husband or a woman, a wife, because it's a security of having someone there. Or they want that full-time job because of stability. So is that pure, like a, you know, or is that also kind of limiting in your opinion?
I believe it's limiting. And I don't actually believe there's anything real about stability. I think that we believe there is because we have the job or we can pay our bills or whatever it is that makes us believe that we're stable. But if you think about it logically, in a blink of an eye, you could lose all that. So stability would mean to me that it can't be shaken in some sense. So with that type of stuff, I just, we're human beings and I think we do crave that.
You do.
But it's probably...
It's an illusion. It's an illusion. You're right.
It's an illusion. Yeah. It's fear-based, right? If I have this, then it'll make me feel better. And it's kind of the opposite. If you feel better, then you may get some of that, you know, but it's even meditation's helpful with that. But, and some people are just, I mean, obviously we're all different to some degree. So some people can live that way and are okay with it, you know, and some people can't. And generally I work with the people that can't. They may be doing it, but something's missing and they just can't seem to get in the flow of regular life or whatever. And I mean, I've just seen it over and over and over. I don't know if there's really such thing as stability.
I mean, I don't think there is either. I think we're living in an amazing time where we have the freedom to create whatever we want, as opposed to having to work to survive. You know, like our parents had, and people before us, they had to work and fight for basic needs, you know, but we kind of have a privilege right now. And I think that we're being called to explore that privilege, this time, this freedom that we have to really expand beyond the limitations of stability and security. And
so we limit ourselves all over the place, you know what I mean? Like we were talking about, even beliefs is limiting. And that's why I really love the essence part of it. I mean, I've been in scenarios where I say, I want this, I want that, I want this person to love me, I want it to look like this or that. It's not coming. It's making me more overwhelmed. And then I just, you know, ask for what I really want, which is to be loved. And then I get responses, right? So do you people that I haven't heard from in years contact me fully loving.
Do you think people know what they really want?
No.
You can say it. You're like...
I mean, sometimes, of course, but I mean, I didn't when it came down to, because people would say, what do you want in this specific way? If you could pick any job in the world, what would you want to do? I had no idea. Made me feel shitty about myself, you know? Like, so that's how the freedom came. It was like I was breaking it down. I was going inward and I was meditating and I was seeing what does it feel like? What is actually drawing me? And I would think of freedom just in this general way, and I'd feel this opening, like that's something. So then I just kept meditating on freedom. And of course, you know, I thought that, like I said, meant, you know, financial or this or that, but I just pulled myself back to freedom. And then all these things came, and it wasn't what I thought.
Yeah. I remember going through one of the most spiritual like transformations of my life, probably 3 years ago. I think a lot of us were going through this crazy
Yeah, 3 years
breaking
ago.
down, like in 2013, like, oh, it was awful.
Yeah, right.
And and I remember just crying out and saying, like, God, like, I want love, like, I just want love, like, either I just give me love, 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 love.
Right.
And I thought it was gonna come like in a husband, but it came in this union with spirit in a way that I've never imagined, and it changed my life. I feel like any love that I could ever have from a human is incomparable to what I feel with
Yeah.
what I have within. So when it comes to people that are, that are harming themselves with their belief systems and their judgments against themselves, what do you think they should affirm? Should they just ask for love? Do you think like, what do you think? How do they? I know
Break
it's
out of it?
I know it's practice,
Right.
but what should they be telling themselves? In your opinion?
Well, I do think there's many different practices, right? But let's say the practice of turning your gaze, as they say. So just practicing taking your focus, your judgment off of the negative belief, right? Just taking it off of that. It's like putting your hand on something and pulling it off, and you're just drawn to it, hot flame. You put your hand on it, you pull it off,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that has to happen first before the other stuff can even happen, because they've trained their mind. The world has trained their mind to this belief system, especially the one that you go to work 9 to 5, blah, blah, blah. That's how you're supposed to live. If you don't, you're flaky, you're weird, all that's, it's not true. They're basing it on fear. They're projecting that fear. You're absorbing that fear. So I do think that, so turning your gaze, so taking your hand off of that thought and turning it towards gratitude. That's one of the best. Yeah.
Gratitude. That's like a whole another segment. Goodness gracious.
It's the quickest. I mean, there's, like I said, there's tons of practices, but it's changing the energy of it. So, and it doesn't have to be the exact. So if you're saying to yourself, I'm ugly, it's not like you have to turn to thank you, I'm pretty, or, but anything in that realm, because it's shifting the thinking, it's shifting the energy literally, because everything's energy, right? So instead of the foggy negative energy, pulling your hand off of that and putting it towards something light. And the lightest thing, the quickest, lightest thing is gratitude. And sometimes I do it, let's say it's happening to me. Sometimes I just do it just like that. Thank you for my house. Thank you for my life. Thank you for, my guides. Thank you. And I'm just doing that. And all of a sudden it's put a pause on that negative thinking and it's moved me into something else, a new energy.
So speaking of gratitude, sometimes when I first began like praying as like an adult, I mean, when I was a child, I always spoke my prayers, but somewhere along the way, I just thought that I could just think it. Do you think there's more power in speaking these words of gratitude or speaking the essence of what you want as opposed to just thinking it in your head?
No, I don't think there's a stronger power to it. And some healers, gurus, people like that think you shouldn't say it to anybody, that you should keep it. And I'm not that kind of person.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed, it's a tricky question, because there is sometimes more power to it, but there's something behind that power. So like the surrender. If I'm saying, God, I need love, I'm saying it like that because I'm going through a breakdown, a surrender. I'm really putting some oomph into it, like help,
Yeah.
So I do think that's powerful, but what comes first? Is it me saying it that makes it powerful, or is it the energy behind it, the surrender, what I've gone through, my struggles, whatever it is that's pushing that out of me? Do you know what I mean?
I do.
So I don't really think it matters either way as far as getting it.
Okay.
But it's always nice. So let's say I'm grateful for my husband. He would like to hear that.
Yeah.
So it's kind and it's nice. And then he gets to feel better. So I do think it can be great, helpful and nice in that way. But as far as getting what you want, I don't know if it matters. I don't think so.
So what are three, I guess, takeaways that you want to tell people with regard to judgment, like how to stop judging themselves and how to be more kind to themselves? Anything, any last little nuggets you want to share about that?
Well, I think that it takes some effort to be kind to ourselves sometimes, especially in this world. Self-care and just taking a pause, and even meditation. It's like, taking a bath or something. It's
Mm-hmm.
really saying, I'm giving this time for myself to be quiet. Meaning, it doesn't mean their mind's quiet. Maybe they want to lay down, take a nap, whatever be in that realm. So I really feel that one of the things is to make space for yourself always, no matter what's going on in your life. And really the practice of the Course in Miracles quote is, today I shall judge nothing that occurs. So that means nothing. No good, no bad, no should, no shouldn't, no wrong, no right. I am pure as I am. I am happy as I am. I am whole as I am. There's nothing wrong with me. That type of thing is just so helpful, because I do think you kind of have to retrain the mind a little bit.
How freeing it is to live an existence where you believe that there's nothing wrong with you. And there's
Yeah.
so many people that do not feel that way. We're always trying to be different. We're always, and I think growth is great, but I
Right.
also think acceptance and non-judgment is also beautiful. Like
Yeah.
how liberating.
Yeah, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
If I want to discover, and you kind of touched on it earlier, discover, experience, that's what I'm doing here. That's what all humans are doing here, I believe, to
Yeah.
experience and discover. And that's growth, right? That I should be discovering what's wrong with me if I'm not. You are. There's so many things going on,
Yeah.
at the same time. So yeah, it was freeing for me. And of course I even have friends or whatever, they'll correct my grammar or do things like that. That's fine. But ultimately I'll say the same thing. Isn't it possible that I'm okay the way I am? Isn't it possible that people will like me for who I am?
Yeah.
And we're just not trained that stuff. And it's extremely freeing to be in my power, and to help people with that. It really is practice. I just keep hearing it over and over again, and sometimes practice is a drag, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
That's okay too. I don't feel like it today. I wake up, I should be doing something, I don't feel like it, the end. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Okay. So practice meditation, that's being kind to yourself too. Because think of that too. If you say, no, be kind to yourself, don't do that, don't say those negative things to yourself, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You're just circling around the same thing. And acceptance, we didn't touch on too much, even though it's very similar, to non-judgment. But that's a big one too, to just keep saying, I accept things as they are. There's an Alcoholics Anonymous book, actually, it says acceptance is the answer to all of my problems. If there's a person, place, situation, something in my life that's unacceptable to me, I can find no peace, no serenity until I accept that thing exactly the way it is, as it should be, because nothing in God's world happens by mistake.
Oh, I love it.
So that just says a lot right there. Right? I know it's long, but accept it, and it's the hardest thing,
Say it again. Say it again so everybody can hear that, what you just said. Say it again.
Acceptance is the answer. Acceptance is the practice, I think, that everything is as it should be, no matter what. Even the struggles are as they should be. And struggles, attachment, right? It shouldn't be like this. I should be better. This shouldn't be happening to me. And that's not acceptance. And if you can't accept it, really, I've seen it. If you can accept where you are in this moment as being perfect the way it is, everything being as it should be, then you're in the flow, and anything that's going on around you won't even affect you.
I love it. I was reading a book. We have to wrap up.
Yeah.
But I was at Barnes and Noble the other day, and I was reading this book. I think it was called The Eternal something of Man, something like that. I forget the title, but it basically said, I forget what it said. Oh, brain fart. It was on the tip of my tongue.
You thought too much about the title. You attached too much to what the title was.
I did. Jeez Louise. Well, anyway, tell people about how they can connect with you, about how they can potentially work with you. Go for it.
Thank you. So my website is themisfityogi.com. And you can connect with me through there, Instagram, Facebook, it all has the same name. Email me, I'm open. And I do all types of healings. Actually, one of my main healings that I do that a lot of people work with me is distance healing. So I do distance healing, and I send a recording of what I felt and what I saw and some messages. So, and I do in-person healings. I do writings for Love is One and Rebellious Society, doing card readings and so on. So I'm kind of all over, because I also figured out, I'm a free spirit. I don't just do one thing.
Yeah.
Isn't that free? When somebody told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I've been looking for my whole life. Free spirit, yes. So anyway, yes, you can contact me through there. I have a newsletter. I send out weekly or every 2-week readings, and I'm kind of eclectic, but I'm open, and you can really ask me anything, talk to me about anything. I'm sure other people say this, but I practice non-judgment. So you could say I've been through it all too. So
Mm-hmm. Have you?
Yes, I have.
Like what?
Oh gosh. Alcoholism, cheating. I had 8 people pass away in a couple years. Wow. Gosh.
It's a lot.
Breakups. Yeah, I was like, someone will say something, they may be going through an addiction issue, and they have shame around it. And I even that, I believe, just has a purpose. It got me to a spiritual place. So I understand people don't feel good, and they're trying to fix that in an external way. I totally get it. So, because I've been through it. So I've been through a lot, and it's helped me in my path and in my business. So
guess what?
Yeah.
I remembered what the quote was from the book.
Oh, nice.
Bum, 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 winning. The book basically said also not to judge other people. And we didn't really talk about judgment in other people, but the book said if you have the nerve or the inclination to want to talk about someone else negatively, speak about yourself in the same light for a minute and see how it feels. And then once you speak that, you'll realize this doesn't feel good, and then you won't want to publicly judge and judge another person as well. Like, isn't that true? Like, it was worded so beautifully, and I was like, that's so true, because we have a habit, even right now on social media, and with our current political system, we're always judging, we're constantly talking, and even in that capacity, sometimes we should be mindful of what we're speaking about somebody else, because it could be said about us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it puts you in that energy. That's the ultimate thing. Whether I agree, disagree with, our government and so on, I know that ultimately if I get too energetically involved in that, deciding that I know better than God, let's say,
mm-hmm.
then I'm in trouble, and by face value, it's not looking good. And of course, I don't like it and all that stuff, but ultimately there's another power. So that's one thing that I'll think about that stuff. If I feel like judging somebody else, I have no idea the scenario. And ultimately, it doesn't make me feel good. And what's tricky about that is most people know that. They may not be conscious of it.
Yeah.
But if they're talking about their friend, they're not sharing some joyful experience they had that day, or, something that makes them feel good. They don't feel right?
Yeah.
It brings an energy down. And I do feel that all that transfers also.
I agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree. But I think that sometimes it becomes a form of socializing to just sit there and, run our mouths,
Right.
about nonsense, and without realizing the consequences energetically of what that could potentially have
Yes.
on and on so many levels, even just feeling good consistently.
Yeah. Right. It's not in gratitude. It's not in the essence of love or freedom or things like that. And it does get tricky. I mean, I've lost friends because that shifted in me. So then we had nothing to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like gossiping or whatever. But ultimately I didn't feel good about it. So I couldn't do it anymore like I used to, so because I was very aware of it, maybe because I'm following joy. I'm following how I feel. I'm following freedom. And I think that, that's a part of what's happening now too. We're pulling a lot of that stuff to the surface. And if you don't have turbulence, if you don't have something rubbing you the wrong way, how are you going to really see? You know what I mean? Like in the government stuff and in the world with your friends. So I think we need some of that turbulence to
Hmm.
come bring stuff up.
Of course.
Evolve.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. So that's like also another topic, about growth and evolution, which we don't have time for.
I
But
know.
before we wrap up, though, I wanted
Yeah.
to share my notes that I took so everyone could, jot them down. So the misfit yogi said, a belief is a judgment. It also is an attachment. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. She also mentions that when it comes to being more gentle with yourself, to practice non-judgment, to practice being aware, to shift the gaze when you feel yourself being, I guess, antagonizing to yourself through your thinking. She also mentioned it's important to embrace meditation, and even when you start having, those thoughts, observe them, acknowledge them, and just shift the gaze. When it comes to also, I guess, receiving, we all want to receive, right? We all want goodness in our lives. She mentioned to ask for the essence of what you want, as opposed to saying, I want $100,000. Ask for the essence of what you want. Anything else you want to just reiterate before we wrap up?
Reiterate what we talked about so much.
We did.
No, I mean, I just believe that if you can try your best to, no judgment, try your best to stay in the energy of the flow of how it feels. I mean, that's one of the best ways to shift the gaze too. It seems all weird to people, but it's very simple. How does it feel? Well, it feels bad, but I need to XYZ. No, that's the ego. That's a separate part, right? How does it feel? Not why, how does it feel? How does it feel? It doesn't feel good to me. Great. Then do that. And then actually with that stuff too, your intuition opens more and more. You're in the flow. You're just turning where you're supposed to turn. Things are just coming. The conversations are easier, that type of stuff. So that's what I maybe want to leave
I
you
love it. I freaking fracking love it. So, Becky, thank you so much for being on Becoming Love. And
Thank
everyone,
you.
thank you for tuning in. Feel free to subscribe and share. Connect with Becky online. She's on Facebook. She has a website, a newsletter. Please support, please connect. And if anything touched you, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, get in touch with us, and we'll happily be of service. Okay? So we are out. It's Tamla Baldwin. Thank you so much, Becky.
Hi, Tamara. Thank you so much. I'm so glad.
Yay!
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, girl. Later, y'all. Bye.
Bye.